Yeah, what was fascinating was the relationship between writing and text and sound, where you have language as one level of meaning, and then you have notation in music, which is also kind of writing, particular to Western music, especially Western music notation and sound, and whether sound itself is a carrier of meaning, or writing and written text is a carrier of meaning, or written music has different rules for making meaning.
Yeah.
I mean, the kind of music that Beethoven writes is totally different from what is written today with just a sampler, which is not notation based. So, going back to also to your biographical parallel life as a poet and as a composer, it made a connection to some contemporary composers that are also poets nowadays. It's very rare. Do you know Rosalie Hirst?
Yes, I know. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I know. Yeah, I know her.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't know her poetry because mostly she writes in Dutch.
Right.
But I know her pretty well. I know her music.
Yeah.
I know her
and
music.
she's also a composer that is half-away poet.
Yes, it is true. And we studied with the same. We had the same teacher. We both studied with Tristan Murail.
Right.
I studied with Tristan Murail in Paris,
and
she studied with him at Columbia University in New York later on.
Yeah. So small world.
Yeah.
And she mentioned she had a piece in Tokyo in January when I was there. And she mentioned that there are very few poet composers, and one of them being Yomasho.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe a bad poet, Wagner. So I wonder whether you have comments about poet composers.
I don't know. In fact, Rosalie, she's fully recognized as a composer, which is not my case. So I already a little bit, poetry, although it has been somehow a starting point and it has been always there. I'm practicing regularly writing poetry, but I had things published when I was adolescent at my 20s, early 20s, and then I completely stopped. So I didn't care about it. So maybe it will come out. There was an editor, a publisher in Portugal that wanted me to write, to have a book of my poetry for many years. But with one condition, was that because I write currently in mostly in two languages, in Portuguese and in French still. He said that all poems in French, you have to translate them. And I told him, okay, I will do it. And when I started doing that work, every time I was translating from French to Portuguese a poem, it was rewriting completely the poem. I was unable to tie myself to the original poem. I really wanted to fly away. So the project aborted. And so I have almost nothing published as such. So my poetry currently is only connected with the musical world. But the way I think I'm writing poetry is very different, at least from the talks I had, the conversation I had with Rosalie Hirst, is very different from what she's doing. In my case, it is much, much more connected with music, with really kind of a same approach. The thing is, questions. What could be an accelerando, a rallentando in poetry as long as you don't indicate the tempi? But you could.
Yeah.
What is an inversion? What is a transposition?
Yeah, maybe it's a bit like Kurzwitters. Ozonate, it goes in that direction. So
of course, it is goes. If we talk about Rosalie, I'm somehow much closer to all the trends that follow on Kurzwitzers with Henri Chopin and all the sound poetry area.
Right. That's the connection I wanted to make. And it goes back also to Mallarmé and
absolutely.
Mallarmé
is a god for this approach. Absolutely.
So I wanted to place you in that.
Yes, I am exactly in that. So Mallarmé is one of my probably my main reference, and un coup de dé jamais n'abolira le hasard.
Exactly.
It's absolutely extraordinary, and then. But
interestingly enough, this is also present in graphics and in architecture in Greece.
But I was very lucky because when I start doing this kind of approach of integration, what I call a state of integration between phonetics and semantics in poetry, I was completely unaware of the sound poetry movement.
Yeah.
I was
And then you
fortunate.
discovered it.
I discovered it later, which was, I was fortunately very ignorant. And
Okay.
when I discovered it, it was interesting because I realized that it was personal. It was my own way on doing it.
Yeah.
I was not just, I was not influenced.
last
Although
point.
I came, and then of course, once I get to know them, it of course changed my way.
Okay, last point is you may be unaware, but this is making another circle. It's revisiting us in the work of a Greek poet, writer, kind of opera, abstract opera, Evripidis Laskaridis.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, he's quite young, and he's already now starting an established career in Barbican in Paris and in Greece at Onassis Center.
Okay.
His last work was called Eremit, and it is a totally abstract opera, but it has no poetry in your way, or almost no poetry in your way. It's even more based on sound. So I think you belong to this kind of family that exists. It's evolving. And
I think so.
It's still alive.
And there is about circle.
Tradition.
I think there is another circle that I'm aware of, and it also came later. It's what Hans Thijs Lehmann, the guy who wrote a seminal book called Following all the Roland Barthes and all those guys. He wrote called Post-Dramatic Theater. In fact, he analyzes what he pretends to be the new theater, starting from this guy that was making Einstein on the beat. What's the name of the guy?
Glass.
Yeah,
Philip
but
Glass.
not Philip Glass, but the stage director.
I don't know. Yeah.
What's the name of the stage director of Philip Glass, Einstein on the Beach? Aquele gajo muito conhecido.
Books, no.
No, it's not Books. This is the English
Williams?
guy.
Anyway,
It's an American guy.
Okay.
Anyway, so there are trends where also staging is. They are
I think Bill Wilson. Anyway.
Bill Wilson,
Yeah.
Bob Wilson, exactly.
Wilson, yeah.
Bob Wilson. Exactly, Robert Wilson. So, is one among others, that in fact made a kind of theater that is much more about image, feeling, and rather than plot, And they see also something that they discover later. But I also
and using
belong.
Technology,
Yeah, and using technology.
Yeah.
That I think I'm also part of this.
Yeah.
Those are the references.
Maybe because our time is too short today, we should retake it and make another interview if we have a chance.
Yes, we can do that.
Are you still there?
Yeah.
Okay.